Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily attacks Kane. Victor divulges embarrassing information, and Michael and Lauren make up. This is your weekly summary of the episodes of The Young and the Restless that aired from October 6th to October 10th, 2025. The Young and the Restless events. On The Young and the Restless, Nikki and Jill. Kyle tried to have Audra vanish as they got into another heated confrontation this week on The Young and the Restless. Kyle made the decision to go to LA to defend Claire. Nick rescheduled his trip to Los Angeles when Victor demanded that he remain in the city to assist in the battle against Kane. Sharon was concerned that Noah wasn't telling her everything that was happening to him. Victor told Victoria that all he wanted was for Jack to believe they were collaborating. Jack encouraged Kane to give Jill his AI program. Before Victor offered to send her a copy of the letter demonstrating that Colin had established his company by defrauding a widow of her fortune, Jill spoke up for Kane. Nikki became aware of Victor's plot to obtain Kane's AI and turn it against Jack. Victor gave Adam and Chelsea instructions to make the damning information about Colin and Kane public. Kane threatened to give Chelsea an exclusive on a completely different subject and promised to sue Newman Media for slander. Lily was furious that Kane had done nothing to alert the twins to the news item, but Jill trusted him when he denied knowing about Colin's ruse. Kane sought Phyllis's assistance in altering the perception of him. Diane backed Jack's strategy to persuade Jill to give him the AI so he could destroy it, even though his true goal was to use it against Victor and Newman Enterprises. Tessa and Daniel found out that Mariah had departed with Will Hensley, an older man she had gotten along with in the hotel bar. Tessa had a suspicion that Will had brought up Ian's memory for Mariah. When Tessa embraced him and referred to him as her best friend, Daniel fought his developing love for her. Daniel was cautioned by Phyllis not to fall for someone who was already in love with someone else. Daniel consented to go to Boston with Tessa to visit Mariah. The Baldwins made amends when Danny and Christine persuaded Michael and Lauren to recall the reasons they were in love. Lauren accepted Christine's invitation to serve as her matron of honor, and Michael consented to perform the wedding ceremony for Danny and Christine. The dynamic between Michael and Lauren drastically changes. Lauren, Danny, Christine, and Michael on The Young and the Restless. When Mr. and Mrs. Baldwin arrived one after the other, loaded for bear, Danny's intentions to meet Michael for a drink at the jazz club and Christine's plans to have a drink with Lauren were derailed. The Baldwins had been fighting about Michael keeping a secret from Lauren that he went back to working with Victor Newman, but the bride and groom were unaware of this. LeBlanc and Bregman came into the room with an electrifying enthusiasm. The Young and the Restless is a dramatic serial, to be sure, but because of the back and forth between Michael and Lauren, the show turned into a French comedy in which Danny and Cricket were tasked with solving problems. Cricket and Danny made the decision to divide and conquer after observing Michael and Lauren teasing each other as though they were verbally tennising. Cricket pulled Michael aside and made her point. She was a close friend who wanted Michael to meet his wife halfway so they could get back together, not a lawyer. On the other hand, Danny ushered Lauren into a neutral corner and encouraged her to discuss Michael's positive traits. Even though the humorous banter at the beginning of the event was entertaining, what we really wanted to watch was the touching reconciliation. The Baldwins made up and decided to communicate more openly by the end of the episode. The couple's marriage is still intact. Because Lauren and Michael are blissfully committed to each other, they won't be waiting in line to receive the bride's bouquet or the groom's garter at the big wedding on The Young and the Restless. Do you want further information? We've got you. The greatest comprehensive YNR recaps may be found online at Soap Central. You may even read all of them from more than 30 years ago. We also provide daily spoilers if you are unable to wait for the next episode. The Two Scoops is as close as we can get to being a watching party without really being a show. So whatever you do this weekend, please remember to read it for some chuckles. Hey, admit it, we're funny. The best thing is that we want to know if you agree or disagree. Leave a comment below as usual. The Young and the Restless produced one of its most exciting episodes in months over a week, full of intense revelations and dramatic reckonings. The show's tone quickly changed from family treachery and corporate intrigue to heartfelt reconciliation and vintage soap opera love. Genoa City turned into a battleground of emotion and allegiance as a result of Victor Newman's notorious strategic explosions. Lily's sadness turning into wrath toward Kane, and Michael and Lauren rediscovering their former bonds. 3 overlapping themes: power, perception, and forgiveness, with a focus of the week of October 6th to 10th, 2025. The protagonists were seemingly forced to face not only their adversaries, but also the lies they had been telling themselves in each scene. Every area of the community felt the effects of Victor's machinations, and the wounds from Kane's previous transgressions roared back into the present. A pillar of stability in Genoa City, Michael and Lauren's marriage, was put to the test once more at the same time, but was eventually confirmed. We break down every aspect of this complex, emotionally packed week on The Young and the Restless below. Victor's incriminating disclosure, the Titan's strategic attack. Nobody is more in control of Genoa City's chessboard than Victor Newman. He won again shown this week why he is referred to as the mustache, calculating, cunning, and always one step ahead. Victor's decision to make Colin and Kane Ashby's damaging material public was not just a straightforward act of business warfare. Rather, it was a brilliant move intended to undermine Jack and Jill Abbott and strengthen Newman's position of authority. An artificial intelligence program, a sophisticated algorithm Kane had created, purportedly to transform market prediction, was the covert weapon at the center of this battle. Victor, however, saw it as leverage rather than merely software. Leverage is also money in Genoa City. Victor's plan was to incriminate Kane in public by connecting him to his father Colin's past transgressions and to incite Jill against her surrogate son in secret, so that she would voluntarily give up the AI technology. Victor told Victoria at the start of the week that he didn't really intend to work with Jack Abbott in a sincere manner. Victor grinned and said, "Your brother thinks we're partners, but he's about to learn that there are no equals in business." It was a terrifying moment that echoed decades of rivalries between Newman and Abbott, but it also demonstrated that Victor had not lost his edge. He continued to be the puppet master, controlling others while feigning cooperation. Adam and Chelsea, meantime, were recruited to carry out Victor's plan's public component. Ever the troubled son, Adam debated whether it was morally right to attack Kane, whom he hardly admired but who was still regarded as being below the Newman line of fire. Chelsea, ever practical, had a different perspective. The truth will be revealed if Kane is honest. Together, they unveiled the incriminating evidence, an exposé that showed Colin had swindled a widow out of her fortune to build his financial empire, with clues that Kane might have benefited indirectly. If he isn't, we are merely the messengers. Jill was left reeling when the story went viral on business news networks and social media. Torn between her own bitter memories of Colin's deceit and her loyalty to Kane, Jess Walton had a powerful performance this week. Jill's expression darkened as Victor provided her a copy of the letter demonstrating Colin's deception. With a voice that wavered between rage and reluctant respect, she told Victor, "You always know how to hit where it hurts most." Ever the moral compass in Victor's maelstrom, Nikki saw right through his schemes. She informed her husband, "You don't give a damn about Kane, Colin, or even the truth." Victor's stony quiet was all she needed to know that she cared about winning. The business chess match gained emotional depth as Nikki realized that Victor was not only seeking Jack's annihilation, but also Kane's humiliation. Additionally, it reignited the long-standing conflict between the Abbotts and Jill, with Jack and Jill once more caught up in Victor's never-ending pursuit of power. Lily slams Kane. Secrets cause a marriage to break down. Lily's rage was the explosion, if Victor's admission was the spark. Lily Winters had spent years trying to restore faith in her marriage, following Kane's numerous betrayals, which included emotional manipulation, corporate scams, and secret children. However, the delicate steadiness of their relationship was once again disrupted when it was revealed that Kane was connected to Colin's crimes. Lily's response was blazing. Heartbreak, disappointment, and righteous rage were all mixed together in one of Crystal Khalil's best performances of the year. Are you aware of the impact this has on our children? Lily's voice trembled as she yelled at Kane. You allowed them to enter the world and the school as rumors circulated that their father was much like his con artist father. Kane made a sincere but feeble defense. He said that he was as blindsided as anyone else and that he had no prior knowledge of Colin's wrongdoings. However, the quiet itself was the issue, not simply the offense. Lily found it inexcusable that Kane had been aware of the rumors going about, but had done nothing to alert her or the twins. Kane, she remarked sourly, you always think you can control the story. But when you're rewriting it, you never consider who might be harmed. Feeling trapped, Kane turned to Phyllis Summers, the most unlikely of allies, for assistance. The kind of perilous chemistry that people love to conjecture about was evident in their scenes. Phyllis, who is constantly attracted to wounded men that she believes she can repair or take advantage of, spotted an opening. If the world believes you're a villain, she said slyly, then perhaps it's time you give them another show to watch. Her promise to assist him in changing public opinion suggested both salvation and possible catastrophe. The fact that it was about history rather than just business or reputation was what caused Lily's reaction to be so intense. She had previously forgiven Kane. She had battled to maintain their family unit. However, the betrayal struck in a new way this time. She believed the scars had healed, but the mention of Colin's name brought them back. The twins' anguish, which was strongly suggested but not shown on film, gave the scene more emotional depth. Lily saw the battle as a struggle against the version of herself that had always cleaned up Kane's mess, not only against his transgressions. In a particularly heartbreaking episode, Lily told Devon that she wasn't sure she could forgive someone who constantly pushing the boundaries of her love. Cautionary, yet smart, Devon told her not to make any snap decisions. Kane has made mistakes, but we have all made mistakes, he remarked. Whether he wants to reform or merely get through this issue is the question. As Kane's following actions became increasingly desperate, the question lingered. In a daring but dangerous move that might reveal more than it conceals, he declared his intention to sue Newman Media for defamation. Kane was characteristically obstinate, erratic, and possibly self-destructive when he threatened to offer Chelsea an exclusive interview on a very different story. He was battling for his name in his mind. It appeared to be just another spiral to everyone else. The emotional gap between Lily and Kane felt unbridgeable as the week came to an end. One of the more intriguing questions going into next week is whether they can close that distance or if Kane and Phyllis's newfound alliance becomes even more complicated. Jill, Jack, and the AI War, Partnerships and Deceit. Jack Abbott had to navigate an equally perilous game in the midst of the mayhem. Jack did what Jack does best when he found out about Victor's most recent manipulation. He plotted. Jack planned to persuade Jill to give up the AI program by saying he planned to destroy it with Diane's steadfast support. His genuine intention, however, was to use it as leverage against Victor in typical Abbott way. Ever the practical spouse, Diane questioned his strategy. She cautioned, "You become Victor if you use Kane's technology the way he wants you to." Jack's response, "Maybe that's the only way to beat him," demonstrated his extreme willingness. The moments, which depict a man weary of constantly playing defense against Victor's kingdom, were given a subdued intensity by Peter Bergman. Jill had to choose between her self-preservation and her allegiance to Kane. Her interactions with Jack and Victor were reminiscent of an old-fashioned power triangle, with each participant trying to expose the other's vulnerability. Although Jill had a gut feeling that she shouldn't trust either man, the strain was growing. In a room full of manipulators, she finally voiced reason when she stated, "Maybe the AI is too dangerous for any of you to have." This subplot laid the groundwork for a much larger storyline, even though it may have been buried by the week's more emotional storylines. In Genoa City's never-ending struggle for dominance, the AI, which stands for technology, power, and moral compromise, has emerged as the newest weapon. It remains to be seen if it will destroy its creator or his adversaries. Daniel, Mariah, and Tessa, the past calls. While the Abbott and Newman empires were at war, another, more subdued, but no less moving story was being told. This week, Tessa and Daniel became closer after learning that Mariah had met Will Hensley, an enigmatic older man, at the hotel bar. Tessa was alarmed to learn that Mariah had gone with him, fearing the encounter had evoked memories of Ian Ward, the cult leader who had once abused her wife. Throughout these episodes, Cameron Grimes' off-screen narrative caused emotional reverberations. It was evident that Tessa felt guilty since she thought she ought to have recognized the warning flags. Daniel, on the other hand, battled his emotions after recognizing that his developing love for Tessa was veering into emotionally hazardous area. Phyllis called him out on it in her usual, direct manner. She told him, half as counsel and half as an admission of her own remorse, "You don't fall for people who are already spoken for." It was more than simply a kind gesture when Daniel consented to go with Tessa to Boston in search of Mariah. It was an implicit declaration of his love. At Crimson Lights, their farewell scene was subtle, yet loaded with meaning. Tessa said, "You're my best friend," and Daniel's face conveyed everything he was unable to utter. This subtle subplot reminded viewers that often the greatest conflicts are the ones we fight within ourselves, adding an emotional element of realism to a week filled with public scandal and business strife. The reconciliation of Michael and Lauren. Love, joy, and teachings. Despite the chaos, Michael and Lauren Baldwin provided one of the week's most joyous and emotionally fulfilling moments. This couple has been one of Genoa City's timeless love tales for decades. Their marriage has been put to the test by treachery, envy, and even death threats. Yet it has always managed to find its way back to the center. Their most recent argument this week centered on a recurring subject: secrets. Lauren learned that Michael had returned to working with Victor Newman, a move he had concealed from her while being fully aware that his past interactions with Victor frequently resulted in moral lapses. The consequences were immediate. A simple miscommunication swiftly escalated into a full-fledged marital impasse. It was a masterclass in timing and tone when they met at the jazz club, which coincided with Christine and Danny's pre-wedding celebration. What might have been a straightforward quarrel between Christian LeBlanc and Tracy Bregman was transformed into a hilarious and poignant drama. Their back-and-forth conversation sounded like a well-balanced duet. Michael's wry humor was met with Lauren's scathing sarcasm. "Maybe you should marry Victor since you trust him more than me." The room was charged with an almost theatrical atmosphere that made it difficult to distinguish between emotional drama and romantic comedy. It was charming and funny to watch Christine and Danny pretend to be spontaneous couples therapists. Always the sympathetic voice, Cricket drew Michael aside and reassured him that showing vulnerability was not a sign of weakness. She murmured softly, "You've defended people all your life. Perhaps it's time you stood up for your marriage." In the meantime, Danny disarmed Lauren by using his vintage rock star charm to get her to acknowledge that underneath the rage was fear. Fear that one day Michael's devotion to Victor would cost them everything. The frosty tension between the Baldwins dissolved into reconciliation by the end of the episode. It was a lovely full-circle moment as they sat hand in hand at the jazz club while the music erupted all around them. They committed to have more open communication and not allowing external factors, such as powerful corporations or personal fears, to push them apart. Lauren's graceful acceptance of the role of maid of honor and Michael's choice to officiate Danny and Christine's impending wedding represented peace and rebirth. Classic YNR, love reinforced, love tested. Michael and Lauren's honesty blazed through the fog like a lighthouse during a week when dishonesty was the norm. Themes and conclusions: redemption, perception, and power. Combining the political and personal into a cohesive emotional fabric is one of the things that The Young and the Restless excels at more than any other soap opera. This week was no different. One overarching theme ran through all of the plots, from Michael's forgiveness to Lily's anguish to Victor's manipulations. Truth always comes to light, no matter how deeply buried. Viewers were reminded by Victor's campaign that isolation results from having power without morality. Lily's tantrums served as a reminder that love cannot endure without integrity. Additionally, Michael and Lauren's reconciliation demonstrated that if both parties are willing, forgiveness may still occur even after the worst mistakes. Additionally, the show did a remarkable job at balancing tone. There were humorous moments interspersed with the somber drama of corporate conflict, especially in the Baldwin sequences. The Young and the Restless endures because of its tonal flexibility. It recognizes that human existence, like Genoa City itself, is full of tragedy and humor, brutality and comedy, all of which swirl together at the same time. There are still questions as we proceed. Will Victor's most recent plan ultimately fail and cause him to lose the faith of his family? Will Lily ever be able to look at Cain without seeing Colin's shadow? Will Cain's image rehab under Phyllis turn into yet another risky entanglement? And when Tessa and Daniel find Mariah in Boston, what will happen when they confront her about whatever secrets she may be keeping from Hensley? The upcoming weeks will undoubtedly be must-watch TV because of these dangling strands. One thing is certain for the time being, though. The Young and the Restless is still at the top of its game and gives viewers the ideal balance of love, treachery, and redemption.